It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning and welcome to the Travel and Cruise Industry News podcast for the 27th day of September 2023 with special guest Nate Vallier of Alaska and Yukon Tours. We'll get to Nate in just a second. We do have a couple news stories this morning. The main headline today, 2 islands impose tax on Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean also has raised the age limit for the Solarium. The Ritz-Carlton Llma floated out this morning. And of course, a weather update. That and lots more live here at 11 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Coming to you, by the way, from Bedford County, Central Virginia area. A typical seasonal day today. It's been cool at night. Days have been nice, but not hot. As you can tell, I've got a sweatshirt on. The mornings are still cold. Of course, I've been up since pretty early today. And Pete and I worked with our friends up at Viva Voyages for about an hour this morning. So there's not going to be a solo cruise deal show this week since we already invested an hour into the solo cruise stuff already today. So that's off my schedule now for the remainder of the day. Thank goodness. I'm not sure my voice would hold out for 3 shows. All right, guys, today is National Chocolate Milk Day. You know what to do. I don't know. If you got some chocolate syrup in the refrigerator, just mix a little chocolate syrup and some milk, stir it up. That'll work. I'm not a real big chocolate milk drinker, but, I'm not opposed to it at all. I don't have any problem at all with celebrating that one today. If you're listening via the podcast, you can always access the podcast via my blog, which is accessadventure.net, or wherever you get your podcasts from. All the big guys, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Pandora, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, any of them. Just search for Travel and Cruise Industry News, and voila, up pops the fat travel guy. If you are listening via the podcast and you ever want to jump over to the video feed so you can check out pictures or clips or interviews that I'm using on that day's show, there's always a link in the description of the podcast so you can do just that. All right. One quick announcement about the Norwegian Epic. The deadline wasn't really extended, but the final deadline is tomorrow. So you can still call to get in on that's the January 28th hosted solo cruise. Tomorrow is the day that all the money's due in. So that's the deadline for booking it. But if you're still interested in going, just give Viva a call. You can get in today. All right, well, let's run over a couple of these this morning before we actually get to my buddy Nate. All right, first of all, that's Llma. She's in Nagasaki today. This is my friend Andy Shell. This was for the gala night on the Zandam. That's what I call doing it upright. This is our friend Ken Cameron. She's from, out in Oregon. She's in Portland Harbor, Maine today. She and her friends that she's sailing with. I'm not going to introduce this fella because y'all know who he is. He's with the largest fiddle in Nova Scotia. That's my buddy Rob on Wonder of the Seas. That's from Guga and Rob. That's the Rob part. Oh, that's one of Nate's pictures. I'll do that after we get to Nate. This is Lizzie Lou. She's misbehaving a little bit in Rotterdam. Of course, that's an adult beverage. She's allowed. She's old enough. By the way, she's hosting the cruise on the Virtuosa. I did make a mistake yesterday on my buddy Sylvia. Her birthday was yesterday. She celebrated by going to a Minnesota Twins game. She got done in Fargo, North Dakota, and came back over to Minneapolis. And she celebrated last night going to a Twins game. I indicated yesterday it's her 50th birthday. It's not. It's her 49th birthday yesterday. So I didn't mean to insult Sylvia. So her birthday is her 49th birthday, and she's made it to 50 states. All right. This is Gretchen in Aarhus, Denmark. It's good to hear from Gretchen. All right, guys. With no further ado, here's my interview with Nate. My special guest this morning on the Travel and Cruise Industry News podcast is Nate Vallier of Alaska and Yukon Tours. You know, Nate and I have worked together on a cruise. We did a cruise together. We're getting ready to do another one soon. He's been on this channel numerous times. So with no further ado, Nate, welcome back to the Travel and Cruise Industry News podcast.
Great. Thanks, Chillie.
Alaska has had, at least by the numbers, a really good year this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been fraught with some problems as we're getting toward the end of the season. And one of them deals from the expansion of the season to include April into October.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what kind of problems that has meant for you and the excursion folks in Alaska.
Well, just because it's there doesn't mean it's a good idea all the time. And what's sad is the cruise lines and the public don't really realize how bad the weather is. I think in the past 2.5 weeks, I just can't tell you every day I come in and get emails from the Ketchikan Chamber, Sitka Chamber, Skagway Chamber, Juneau Chamber. Hey, this ship's delayed, canceled due to fog in Endicott Arm or Hubbard or Glacier Bay. It's going to be skipping, going early. I've never seen so many disruptions to cruise ship itineraries, in 15 years. And this is only mid-September. Normally the cruises tend to, before COVID, I want to say our last ship was right around like September 20th, which has it leaving, Vancouver, Seward, Whittier, Seattle, like around the 15th or a little bit earlier. And now they're running all the way through, I think the last departure is October 22nd. And it blows my mind. Now, if they're marketed correctly and make sure people are aware, hey, when you get to Skagway, nothing's going to be open. It's kind of a good idea because then you can stay on a ship, you can see the beauty of Alaska, you can, really take in possibility of Northern Lights and enjoy Alaska without having 15,000 people in port. But on the other hand, everything's closed. Even today was the last day of a restaurant here in Skagway. Even for me for lunch, Brew Co. is going to stay open, Fish Co. is closed, Smokehouse is closed, Northern Lights is closed, Cafe on Fifth is closed, Bonanza's closed, Bites on Broadway is closed. So it's like, where do you go to eat? And there's just like right now we had, I think like 6,000 people in port today. There was nowhere for them to go. All the sled dog camps are shut down, but Michelle Phillips, the train's still running. and you can still drive up the pass. People can rent cars, but for the most part, the number of excursions available, it's kind of been halved. And there's helicopter tours are pretty much done for the year. Whale watching is really winding down. No one's having that, hey, if you see a whale, if you don't see a whale, you get it free. They don't do that anymore in September and October. Some whale watching boats even didn't launch last week in Juneau because it was too windy and the seas were rough. So it's really it's a challenge right now. And I feel bad because I've warned a lot of travel agents, hey guys, this isn't the best time of year to come up. And they just left on a big cruise on Princess with Carmen, the VP of sales leading it. And you know what? I bet it's going to turn around and they're going to have amazing weather, so it's going to bite me in the ass, I think. But the weather's been pretty bad. It's gone from, 65 degrees and 70 down to, we're getting like 33, 34 at night. We're running our heaters in our units, in our buildings. And it's to be honest, it's been pretty miserable all over Southeast. Yeah. And I think with September, it's just because, and that's why it's cheaper, is because the weather is a challenge. It's not like May, when everything's open. And on that extent, even April, these early April cruises, the weather is better. We do get a lot of fog still. We get some cloud cover, but we don't have the rain going sideways, but nothing's open.
And
you're going to get to Juneau, and Fudge Company won't even be open, and as far as I know. So,
all right. One of the things that just from my experience up there on my 4 trips to Alaska, if it's 35 to 40 degrees, and you're on a cruise ship on the water, that's flipping cold.
Mm-hmm. And once you get closer to the glacier, it's another 20 degrees colder. Add in the wind, and you're going to be freezing your butt off. So like on the cruise we were on, I at first thought I got sick just from being in the hot tub in the back and having to run in this cold wind blowing on my face to get inside. I thought that triggered my allergies. So of course we get to Vancouver and, we know how that all ended. But, I thought it was just allergies that hit me. It's like, oh, crap. Here I am in a hot tub, back of a ship, drinking my butt off, trying. My friends and I tried to get the 15 limit on Princess. None of us, we couldn't do it.
No, you can't do that.
It got close. I think I hit 13. But, it was just really cold. And, a lot of people on the ship we were on were miserable. So and our dates were good. We were last week of August. And so September is just really much a challenge. Be prepared to be on the ship, get some deals in the spa. If the ship is part of your destination, then even better. But if you're on a smaller ship, like we see from, I hate to point out Holland America because they are a good line, but they do have the smallest ships, which means less to do. Not as much activities. You're going to have a much different time than someone on Norwegian Encore or Bliss where you've got freaking go-karts.
Yeah. Well, some people really like that. Some people like me don't care about that. I'd rather be on the smaller ship sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I've got friends on the Jewel right now, and they're aware of the weather, but they're happy because the Jewel, unlike, that class of Norwegian ship, you've got the thermal spa above the bridge. So you can actually go in there, and I've done it too. I've been in the hot tub and the thermal spa is we're going through Endicott Arm. So I think as long as you know what you're in for, then come up. But don't plan your whole life for an Alaska trip and come up
on
now.
These weird dates.
Stick
to the nice conservative middle of the road path. I don't usually say that, folks.
Spend your money, your money's well earned and hard earned, and or the credit card company is gonna come after you, but make it worthwhile. So that I really would urge people who've never been up here, never cruised, stick to the middle of May to the end of August, because even though we still get bad weather in the summer, it's not like this. At least in the summer, you have a chance of going on the helicopters. You have a chance of seeing more whales. You've got the opportunity, but right now in Skagway, I want to say 5 operators are closed, If you go to Vider right now to book anything in Skagway, people's mouths are going to drop at how few options we have. And even going into October, Skagway Tours is one of the last people staying open. Alaska Excursions, which does the zip line, they have the dog sled camps and a couple others here in town. Their finale party was last night. Yeah. So they're not operating anymore, as far as I know. And then next week on the 29th is when everyone else tends to start closing up shop. So the Suspension Bridge closes, Michelle's camps close. Even in Whitehorse, a lot of the museums that are open, they go to weekend only hours. And even Whitehorse is amazing. But a couple of the car rentals here in town close. And in June, everyone's going to try to stay open. They're doing their best. I'm not here to dispel October tourism because, with the way the weather's been changing in our climate, it may be a beautiful October. Yeah. But again, half the stuff you want to do and hear about isn't going to be open.
Right. All right. I had a troubling story last week one day, that I thought I'd ask you about since you're up there and kind of in the middle of it.
Okay.
And that comes out of Sitka, where some of the residents have started a movement to limit cruise ship passengers, much in the same way as it was done in Bar Harbor, Maine. It's been a couple years in the making. What do you know about Sitka's movement to limit cruise ship passengers?
So I'm also a member of the Sitka Chamber and CVB. Actually, we do other travel, so I know them pretty well. And this is the downside to mass tourism. Sitka used to get about 50 calls a year, and the ships would come into port, they would tender, and then people would be let off at the small boat harbor. So a couple of years ago, through, I believe, two of the cruise lines, I'm not going to name them, it's not a bad thing, but they bought some land by the ferry terminal, which is on the north side of the island that Sitka's on. It's about a 15-minute drive. And so now there are 2 Panamax level floating docks in Sitka. And as we've had more and more ships come up here, they have to go somewhere. And that's where Icy Strait and Sitka have exploded as destinations. Now, the problem with Sitka is, number one, don't watch the proposal that was filmed in Massachusetts and Maine. Sitka looks nothing like that, but it's close. You literally have one main street, which is about 5 blocks long, which has Wells Fargo, the churches on there, and all the shops. And there's literally nowhere for people to go. And it's bad. And so I think they're going to win. And Sitka is an amazing place, but when you've got too many people, it's a miserable experience for everybody. Even Fortress of the Bears, they had to cut off entry because it was just too much. And so next year they're going to have a permitting type system where you have to get tickets in advance to go in there. Because it's all about maintaining the experience. It's about, I'm very much in key to try to sell travel. That's how I get paid. But if I have a crappy environment, nobody's going to want to come up here. So we need to protect that. We need to keep Alaska a pristine environment where people want to come up, where we don't become Vegas, with bears and everything. So I think that we're getting to that breaking point. Next year, I think, is going to really make a lot of changes because in Juneau, everyone's upset. Skagway, people are, people here on the fence because the beginning of the season, we saw what happens when a big ship doesn't come in port. And it really changed a lot of people's business acumen. At first, they're saying, oh, too many people, we're going to hate this. And now, since Quantum doesn't come in here, that's 75,000 less people. That it was noticeable. Yeah. But how do we get there is kind of what everyone's at. And how do we limit this? It's not that people want to go as extreme as Bar Harbor, but it's more of how do we work with the cruise lines as Alaskans, as travel agents, travel trade, even consumers to make this still a viable, economical destination for people. And the cruise lines have done that. One of my independent packages to come up and travel here, you're going to spend Probably 1,700 to 1,800 a person, for airfare and all your excursions, and a couple days in Juneau, Skagway, Glacier Bay, and then go up to Anchorage and Denali. But when you've got cruise lines offering 7-night inside passage for $499, why bother? With that. And so that's really changed the dynamic of the marketplace. It's changed how people are feeling in doing business. Prices are going up. It's harder to get workers. Airbnb's taken off and pushed a lot of people out. And especially what's going on in Sitka, and I'll send you some pictures of your show. They've blocked off Main Street when there's more than 6,000 people in town, and they divert traffic. Now, what they've done is very smart, and it's great for the tourists because they've turned the Main Street into like a bazaar. So you have bathrooms, and you've got and you've expanded business opportunities for people who aren't on that strip. So you can rent tents, and you have little kiosks, I guess, and food trucks, and they've done a great job with that. So Sitka's tried to manage it, but unfortunately, when they got
too much
people, and and it's land. There's just, I hate to say this, they need to pull an icy straight point out where they have something more built up for people to go. And that's what we're seeing in the cruise line industry. Is we're seeing places like Amber Cove get built out more, especially like in Roatan. Roatan, you've got Coxon Hole, and I forgot the other place. They're doing it in Belize, which is fantastic. Mahual, with Costa Maya, they didn't build it big enough,
Right.
And it's just, there's a way to do it to make it worthwhile. And I think Sitka just doesn't have that infrastructure. They don't have, I hate to say the Disney rides and attraction like Icy Street, but they need that, because at least on Icy Street, you can go somewhere. You can spread out. Whereas in Sitka, you're right smack in downtown, and, just nonstop bus traffic back and forth on a 2-lane highway. It's really, really annoyed the locals.
Yeah.
And so,
I wasn't really opposed to the position of the folks that were trying to limit the traffic. I could from afar, I could understand the points that they were making. And, and I find that knowing the other problems that have come out of this mass movement of trying to blow Alaska, sky high, it's maybe Alaska does need to pull back its horns a little bit and get some more sensible planning into the whole thing, and make, like you said earlier, a better experience for everybody.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Sitka is not like Ketchikan and Juneau and Skagway, where they've been core cruise ship ports since the beginning of the 60s, when we first started getting, I forgot the name of the cruise line that came up here. We just don't, Sitka was never set up for that. Sitka's never been a cruise ship town. And so that's why they were okay with a couple of Norwegian and Holland America ships every year. So again, I do think it was like 52 berths a year. So a berth is when they actually dock. And when the Alaska season is 130 days, you do the math. So it sounds like one ship every other day. So that's manageable. Now with Sitka, it's tripled. They're now getting, I think they are lucky to get like 1 day a week of no ships. Skagway, that's going away next year. We now have a very well-rounded schedule. Juneau used to be Saturdays were the slow day, and they're not getting that. So I do suspect my old neighbor who started the referendum in Juneau, last year or year before, I can see her getting traction this year, just because 1.8 million is just too much. And kudos to Celebrity. We love Celebrity, but they're bringing up, I think, Edge next year. It's the next year. Yeah. So that's replacing. They're doing some shuffling. So Millennium is being replaced. I think we still have Solstice and Eclipse maybe. But now that they're bringing up the Edge, it's an extra 800 people sailing.
Yeah.
And that adds up, and they're going to get it. Celebrity is going to fill that ship no problem, especially if Captain Kate's going to be on board, which is the rumors we're hearing.
Yeah.
But it's not about being anti-tourism. It's just, how do we still maintain a quality of life and maintain this amazing environment that people want to come up and visit? Right. And I think that's where we're at. I think that's where the breaking point is. When is enough? And even in Skagway, they're debating that with the new ore dock that just started construction on it. People like you are going to love it because it'll be a floating dock. So you no longer have to deal with the tide moving and, you start and your dock is like this and you come back and it's flat. So it's going to be a floating dock next year, which is going to be a great benefit for everyone, but it's going to allow Panamax ships in here. Whereas right now you have to get pre-Panamax. I forgot the name of the class, but Broadway dock. Yeah, Broadway dock is limited to that. And the railroad dock has 2 spots that are Panamax rated. So like I said, being a travel agent, I also advocate for tourism as much as I can, but we need to do a better job.
All right, Nate, that's what I've been trying to get a hold of you for.
Good deal.
So thank you so much for giving me a few minutes today and bringing us up to date on life in Alaska.
Like I said, it's been wonderful, but yeah, I appreciate it. And, like I said, we do welcome people. We want to come up, but we want you to have a good time too. And it's hard to do if you come to an empty town and see clothes on everything.
All right, Nate. Thanks again.
Yep.
We'll see you soon.
Good deal. Thanks, Chuck.
All right, guys. All right. I talked to Nate last night about 11 o'clock my time. And since then, not only did he send me some pictures of Skagway, but he also sent me a report that he talked with the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Sitka after I talked to him, and they've got a visitor task force working on this problem. So that's about as hot a news item as you can get. And these are just some shots of what they're doing in Sitka. And at least they bring in the porta potties. So they've got bathrooms there. And one other thing that happened, Elizabeth is still in Copenhagen. They went out to dinner last night, and she went to Rangoli, which is an Indian restaurant. And she said it was as good Indian food as she's ever had. And she eats at Indian restaurants literally all over the world. So Copenhagen's got a really good one. Really a quick hello to some of our guests in the chat room. I'm not going over there yet, but Kenneth, Mike, Denise, welcome aboard, Denise. Hope you're still with us. Steve's here, Dennis is here, Hot Air Tom's here. We'll go over to the chat room right after I take care of the news, and we'll get to the news after a quick break from one of our network sponsors. All right, we're going to start off today with a look at the weather. It's not near as bad as it's been, and it's improving every day. Felipe turns west, likely to weaken during the next few days. This is a little troubling. It was going to the northwest, and in that direction, it would literally miss everything. Well, it turned west, due west overnight. So it's now aiming more at the Leeward Islands. Currently, it's still 685 miles east of the northern Leeward Islands. Maximum sustained winds are 45 miles an hour. It's moving this morning, the last reading I had, it's moving directly west at 12 miles an hour. Pressure's at 1,003, so it's up another tick from yesterday. It's expected to move. They're still saying it should go west-northwestward over the next couple of days. Is it going to interact with the Leeward Islands? I don't know. That's into a question mark now. They're also still saying gradual weakening during the next few days. Now, the one to really watch out for, obviously, we got to watch Felipe just since it changed direction on us. But the one that's following up behind is it's getting worse and worse. Showers and thunderstorms continue to show signs of organization in association with an area of low pressure roughly halfway between Cabo and the Lesser Antilles. Environmental conditions are forecast to be conducive for development. Tropical depression or tropical storm is expected now to form today or tomorrow while the system moves west-northwestward again. At this point, I'm thinking it's too early to say that this is likely going to miss everything. I think we got to wait another day and look at that. They're talking about 90% possibility of formation change in the next 48 hours, and then 90% for the next 7 days. So this is going to be a big bad boy before it's over with. So I don't know, folks. I think this could be a bad one, but obviously I was wrong yesterday. So what can I say? All right, that's it for the weather today. Nothing in the Pacific. Yay. All right. The top news story this morning deals with our friends over at Royal Caribbean. Port authorities in the U.S. Virgin Islands approved a proposal to charge each Royal Caribbean Group cruise ship passenger a $5 fee to improve local port facilities. This fee will be implemented beginning January 1st. Brands that follow under the Royal Caribbean Group, of course, are Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity, and Silver Sea, officially referred to as the Capital Cost Recovery Charge. That's a fancy way of saying, yeah, let's screw the cruise ship passengers out of $5 more. It will be charged to passengers whose cruise ship dock at 2 of its ports, the Austin Monsanto Marine Terminal in Crown Bay, that's in St. Thomas, and the Anne E. Abramson Marine Facility in Frederiksted. The fees collected will fund the initial stages of development projects in Crown Bay and Frederiksted. This includes enhancements to infrastructure, dredging operations, and the construction of a 3rd cruise terminal in Crown Bay. Earlier this summer, the Bahamas imposed a new tax on cruise passengers, which also starts January 1st. So we're kind of getting double dipped by some of the ports now. While we're talking about Royal Caribbean, they have decided to up the age limit in the Solarium. It's been 16. It's changing to 18. And that's going to be fleet-wide, and that is effective immediately. So, all right, folks. And again, I'm glad Dennis is here. Dennis, I hope you're still with me, because I'm not entirely sure on the pronunciation of a word. But the Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection, their CEO, Jim Murin, popped the cork of a 6-liter bottle of Moet and Chandon to signal the start of Llma, is the way I'm guessing this is pronounced. The spelling is, it's Llma. Llma's float out. Okay, so Llma. I thought it was LLMA, and I tried looking that up this morning, and there was no LLMA pronunciation anywhere. Okay, so that's ILMA. So that's Llma's. That's the new Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection ship. The float out. Come on, Don. As Chantes de Atlantique during festivities yesterday. If things go to plan, CEO Murin will be uncorking many more bottles of champagne in the coming years as his company aims for 8 to 10 new builds for multiple Marriott international brands, all probably from Chante de Atlantique. But Tuesday evening, it was all the Llma, Ritz-Carlton's second yacht, and the first of two LNG-powered new builds, formed the impressive backdrop for a dry dock celebration. The blades of the yacht's azipods polished to a gleam in demonstration. Llma's marina platform was unfolded. So congratulations to Ritz-Carlton on getting a new boat floated out. All right, now let's go over to the chat room, see who else is here. I got down to Dennis. Dennis, 50 before 50. That's correct, 50 before 50. And I said that wrong, so I apologize to Sylvia. Hot Air Tom is here. Quick question for the chat room. When you travel to Europe, coming from the States, do you bring cash to pay for everything, or is it best to use credit cards? I'm not sure what everybody's going to say about that. I try to use cash whenever possible, just so I don't have to deal with the fees and stuff. But anything major, obviously, I don't carry enough cash to pay for hotels and stuff like that. That I'd put on a credit card. But a lot of the incidental kind of things, transfers and bus transportation, taxis, things like that, I like to pay cash for them. That's my personal opinion. Dennis says a reminder that most of the workers are brought in as seasonal help from outside Alaska. Yeah, they are. The whales are probably on their way south for the winter. Yeah, it's actually, we had a really good week when I was out at sea, but the Captain Charles, who was captain of the boat I was on, said that they were figuring there would be another week of it. So by the middle of September, the whales have started heading south. A lot of them go to Hawaii. The other thing that just constantly amazes me about whales is they're identified by their tails, and they're named by their tail. And these guys that are up there every day, they call the whales by name. They have a book of the tail, a picture of the tail, and the name of the whale. And let's say a whale that we saw last week goes to Hawaii, and somebody out in Hawaii will see it and say, "Oh, there's such and such, just got in from Alaska." I mean, it's like they know these critters. I found it amazing. Hot Air Tom says, I use a card that has no exchange fees, NCL MasterCard. If I'm in one country for a few days and I think I need some cash, I'll use a debit card to get cash from an ATM in country. All right. Hot Air Tom's been over there more than I have recently. He would be more of a person to answer that question. Make sure you use a good exchange rate site so you know what a good rate is. Lots of various rates. Buyer beware, basically. Tom, do you have a visa to get into Europe? I guess. And if you do, how long does it take to send and get it back? There's amigo John up in Minnesota. By the way, John, we did have, I tend to call her Lady J, was on the show yesterday from her little event on Sunday. Didn't get a chance to tell you that. M's with us. Good morning, M. M says good morning to John, too. It's good to see you. Anyone know why the tram in Alaska is down? They just close it at a certain time of the season. Yeah. Well, for several reasons. One, a lot of the people that work the tram are seasonal workers. And the cruise ships have expanded the season, but some of those seasonal workers have gone back to college or whatever. The other thing on the tram, you get into cold and windy weather like they've been having in Juneau, you can't take that thing up the mountain. So yeah, not surprised at all. And it might be shut down for the season. I don't know specifically on that. I haven't checked on it, but I've been there on days when it was windy that they couldn't take the tram. And then, up on top of that mountain, if it's 35 or 40 degrees in Juneau, it's going to be at least 20 degrees colder on top of that mountain. So it could be iced up on top of the mountain. When I was there in May last year, I went up on the tram and was in snow and sleet on the top of the mountain. And that was in the mid-afternoon when you think it would be warmed up. And then pops in to make sure you get a good exchange rate. Also, use your credit card and cash. It depends on what you're doing. When I did both, I was in the Philippines. Kenneth started January. We will need to have an ETIAS, which is electronic for EU, assuming they don't delay it again. It's been delayed many times. The website is not active yet for apps. So there's a good possibility that by our trips in 25, we'll have to have the ETIAS. I'm not familiar with what would you consider a good rate. Okay, thanks, Tom. We will check that out. Hopefully they get active again. Llma. Okay. I didn't put enough of the double E sound. Llma. Thanks, Dennis. When I was there, I would take out 5,000 to 6,000 pesos. Their money is different. It goes a long way. So I Googled 1,000 pesos is about $20. If you use cash, take enough out that you for what you need for a week, or at least the next few days. I'm thinking Chillie needs to visit the eye doctor for a new prescription or buy a very large screen device to enhance reading. Thanks, Hot Air. Chantier Atlantique. I thought I was close to that. Atlantique. The final S is silent in French. Yeah. Chantier means shipbuilder. No, I didn't know that. All right, so that's a new one. There's Robin. Hi, Robin Wilkins. How are you? Robin says they're going for 25 days. That's Kenneth and Robin, Emily, in case you didn't know that. We missed the other Royal Caribbean news. They are upping the age limit for the adult pool, 16 to 18. Yep, that was one of my stories this morning, Hot Air. There's Mr. Bucket List. What's going on, folks? We were just talking about you yesterday, Justin. Each whale tail is distinct. Yeah, it's like a fingerprint, only it's their tail. and they're all. It was fascinating just to look through the book at all the different shapes and of the tails and stuff. I mean, to me, a whale's tail's a whale's tail, but not to them. 74, 25 days of cruise won't be all Europe. The first part of the cruise has a lot of sea days. There's Gary, older than dirt. Hi, Gary. Good to see you again. Sorry he's late. Okay, that's okay. You can always go back and watch the replay. All right, guys, that's going to wrap me up for today. Again, there is no solo cruise show at 12 today. Thank goodness. It was good to meet all of the people at Viva. That's the booking agent for Passion for Cruises USA Solos. And Pete and I did a presentation for them on hosted solo cruises and maybe to help them some in dealing with solo travelers. So those of you that don't know, solo travel now, the two areas that are the greatest growing, the fastest growing segments in the cruise world is solo travel and accessible travel. And I fit both. So anyway, that's going to wrap up the show for today. As always, smash that thumbs up button. That helps us out a bunch. And I will see everybody back here, same time, same channel tomorrow. And as always, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, think about cruising, and hopefully one day soon we'll all get together on the high seas. Y'all have a fabulous day. I'll see everybody tomorrow.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.